Hello, everyone. My name is Cornel Fătulescu. I'm Chief Platform Officer at Pentalog, meaning I'm in charge with products and technology aspects of our group. And before going to the usual CTO talk, I have news for you. So since the last CTO talk we discussed, and now, of course, we had holidays, but something else happened. Globant acquired Pentalog. So if you liked working with us, you should see it from now on. There's literally nothing impossible for us. We cover almost all areas of the world, 27,000 employees. It's just going to be great. So if you want to learn more about it, go visit our site or globant.com and learn more about us. That being said, I'm getting back to my usual track, the CTO Talk track. Now, the CTO Talk was the event meant to talk about the engineering and technology roles, but focusing on the roles. This is why we have a set of rules that I usually use the same time, and set of questions that I ask usually our guests. And of course, that's half of my responsibility. The other half is getting questions from the audience. So yes, please do use the Q&A feature from the webinar and ask your questions there, and I will take them one by one and ask our guest to answer to them. That being said, Rui, please welcome the stage and tell us something about yourself and your company.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks, Cornel, for the opportunity. Congratulations to Pentalog for, wish you all the best. So a little bit about me. My name is Rui. I have been a software engineer for a long time, more than like 10 years now. And, I've progressed through all the ranks of software development and eventually landed my engineering manager role. And now I work for Burberry. In Burberry, engineering management is really one of those loaded roles that you do pretty much a little bit of everything. You're involved in from estimations to debugging to roadmap to budget. So it's very, very broad role, and I'm really happy to discuss that with everyone.
Good. It sounds simple as for everyone we've invited here. So yeah, please start with this fundamental question. How do you define your role? What are the responsibilities for you, the main responsibilities at Burberry?
Yeah, so in Burberry, I manage two backend teams from what we call internally the commerce team. And the commerce team is responsible to power the backends on Burberry.com, which is a worldwide website. And those two teams are divided into managing China services and what we call rest of the world services, because China has a lot of specific things that we need to go through. All the technology, sits in e-commerce pretty much, and that's what we do on the backend. We have a cutting edge architecture, if I must say. We run on event-driven, serverless cloud architecture.
Lots of keywords.
Yeah, lots of buzzwords. Yeah, sorry about that. But anyway, it's really what it is. Like, it's a bunch of microservices that talk to each other by events, pretty much. And what I do specifically is I take care of these two teams to make sure that they're as most efficient and happy, and the process is oiled in a good way enough so that we plow through features and make customers happy.
Is architecture part of your role?
Yes and no. So as I said, it's a very broad role, but Burberry does have business analysts and solution architects that complement the team.
And when it comes to decision making, are you signing off most of the decisions?
I am part of the team that signs off those decisions. Yes. So it's always a combination of business analysts, solution architects, engineering, product, and delivery that makes the decisions. And you know, priorities, estimations, how we're going to implement, what are we going to implement? All these questions are answered by this team pretty much. So I don't have like ultimate power or ultimate decision or vetting. That's not how it works. It's a very nice teamwork to make sure that, you know, the team goes forward and fulfills the objectives. Yeah.
Excellent.
Shall I say, like, in parallel of these, I still have my own initiatives that I need to, you know, work on and implement in my team, right? So I have my own OKRs, you know, like we deploy more or we deploy better with less bugs or like whatever it is. It's not just business as usual work of day to day of deciding a roadmap and make sure that everything is going well. There's also like initiatives that I need to, it's not need, like I really want to do them, right? I want my team to be better, yeah, or improve.
Who do you report to?
Right now I report to the head of engineering. I used to report to the senior engineering manager, but he's like in a holiday, special holiday. So I now report to the head of engineering, yeah.
And I understand for the two teams, but who reports to you? Is it everyone from these teams or some people in particular?
So I have a very democratic style of management. So anyone can come to me. My direct responsibility are the two tech leads of each team. Right? So one tech lead on each team, pretty much. Those are my, say, direct reports. But all devs, we have like 6 devs on each team and 2 QAs on each team. So that's like 6, 8, 16 plus 2 tech leads. So 18 people kind of like on my teams, and my direct are 2 people, right? Those are my direct, that I work every day with them. But any developer can come to anyone, shall they need to speak about anything, you know.
You said also something about, now you're saying like any developer can come to me. In the same time, you said something about happiness in the first
of course
minute. What can you share with us about the way you see developer happiness or your team members' happiness?
So there's, you know, you build a relationship with your team as time goes, right? And you go through a lot of different scenarios, like different situations. Sometimes, you know, that time is shorter. Other times, like, you know, things go well. But you build rapport with these people, and eventually you get to know like what makes them tick, what makes them happy, what makes them motivate. And if you employ you know, fairly empathic, you know, way, then, you know, people relate to you and they open up and they tell you what they want with their careers, what they want with their lives, what they want to, you know, to achieve in Burberry or in any, like, this extrapolates to any company pretty much. So it's due to the interpersonal skills, I'd say. You know, I avoid these buzzwords as much as possible. You know, it is what it is, right? You relate to them and they open up, and then you can try to make them happier, right? You can find ways to make them happier.
What are the can you give examples of some also negative side effects of being in this way? Is there anything that troubled you because
Absolutely.
you are positioning yourself like this with your team?
Absolutely. One of the things by you know, creating these relationships and being so close to everyone is like, sometimes if you have to enforce authority some way, which not like it doesn't happen often, but whenever it's time that someone is enforcing authority on you and you need to kind of like put it top down, then things don't go well because it's not my personality, and then it derails a little bit sometimes. But on the other hand, like, you know, as long as you know your weaknesses, shall I say, or your shortcomings, then you can, you know, plan for them. You know, you can foresee things going, you know, or authorities coming to this issue. So let's try to be ahead of the game and make it a non-issue. So as long as you know them, like, you introspect, you think about your management style, your personality, and then you can try to overcome those by not allowing them to be an issue in the first place.
We have one first question about what you've just said.
Awesome.
Wow, 18 direct reports is too big to manage. How do you cope with all these one-on-ones you need to do? How often do you catch up with each of them? And when you do, how do you remember what your direct reports share to you about their career aspirations or interests? In fact, there are 3 questions. So I will say it again, the first part of it. So how do you cope with all the one-on-ones you need to do? First one.
So I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clear enough. I don't have 18 direct reports. I have 2 direct reports, which is the tech leads of each team. And maybe, the QA lead is also a direct report, but not officially, I would say. But officially, I have 2 direct reports, which are the tech leads, one of each team. And then anyone can come to me with questions. I can book one-on-one with anyone. I can book a one-on-one with anyone. Anyone can book a one-on-one with me. Pretty much like open door policy. But I don't do 18 one-on-ones every week or every other week. That's crazy. You wouldn't have any work done. Yeah.
And how do you catch up with your direct reports? So
I have weekly one-on-ones with them, and then I have a weekly we call it commerce engineering leadership sync, right? Where we have the SAs, so solution architects, we have the tech leads, we have some devs if we need them specifically to talk about some issue that is going on or some feature that is going on. But usually that's the meeting where we can everyone sync up and say, how's our backend doing, right? Which is good.
Can you say something about the tooling? Like you do use a particular tool in these regards, or?
So we do Microsoft Teams for communication, and we have a lot of tooling, right? But the most prominent in these meetings is usually telemetry and observability, right? So we rely on New Relic for those. We also have PagerDuty, but that's more on the security side. But yeah, I would say New Relic is a pretty good tool.
Okay, that's already a comprehensive answer in my opinion. I will go with my questions now.
Please.
So in terms of technology leadership, CTOs, VP of engineering managers, chief information officer, one of the most important responsibilities of these roles is to translate, being a translator. Translate from technology opportunities to business opportunities, or from business opportunities to technology workload plans and things like this. So how much of your job is related to being a translator? How important is that for you at Burberry?
90%. Of my job is doing exactly what you just described. It's literally going to meetings and talking to, you need to understand the context of the meeting where you're going. And if product is there, then you're going to talk product language and explain to them like what they want to hear, what we're doing in the way that they can understand. Then you go to devs and you have to translate what products have into something that devs think it's feasible or would understand, right? Then you go to delivery and you need to talk to them to say, we can do this in X amount of time. So you're translating all the time. And more often than not, the role of engineering manager in Burberry is seen as that person. So if a product person has some issue of, I cannot talk to this developer because he or she's not understanding like what is going on, can you please help me out? And then you go do the translating job, right? And other departments, other teams come to you and say, I have this problem or, this feature that we need to implement. How can your team support us? And then you translate again. You go delivery. We have this roadmap. Maybe we don't have space. Maybe we can prioritize it. So you're literally translating all the time.
This is music to my ears. So, because sometimes senior technology leadership may be surprised, especially when they do the job the first time, the amount of energy involved in the translator role. So for everyone here willing to, I know, evolve to this kind of positions, remember this is very important. Now I'm going to go to my next question about the efficiency of such leadership, technology leadership, and one of the aspects is the it seems there is a strong correlation between the presence of the technology leadership in the mindshare of the executives. Like, what are your touch points with the executive boards? Do you have some, or not today, with the executive officers or finance officer, operational officers?
Specifically at Burberry, it's a very big corporation, and the hierarchy architecture, I would say, is very, very comprehensive. Therefore, you know, an engineering manager of one team will have limited contact with C-level or especially on the C-level. So I don't have a lot of contact with the executive level, to be honest. You know, maybe via town halls, what we call like all hands, pretty much, or not even all hands, like engineering or digital department all hands, right? It's not even company-wide all hands like some startups or smaller companies can do, because it's not possible. You cannot have like 2,000 people in one room. It's a bit crazy, but we do have like it's more on the direction way that they do the direction of the ship, shall I say. And then it's up to people to translate that into OKRs, you know, objectives that people can actually aim for, which translates to product features, which translates to implementation, which translates to code.
You said OKRs. Is that the particular format you use?
No.
No.
At the moment, for engineering management level, we have what we call initiatives. So you kind of like, and one good thing about these is like it's not imposed on engineering management. It's built together. So when I joined, I was asked like, you know, have a month or something, or you know, the first 90 days. That's the whole theory on that on the internet. People can go read on it. So you have a period of time where you can assess, listen, analyze, think about it, you know, from on your own, and after you speak to a lot of people, after you meet a lot of people, and then you come up with things that you know you can improve. And this is always done with the how do I say, mentorship of someone more senior than you. So in this case, it was my senior engineering manager. So I got to work on these initiatives or suggest some initiatives that were shaped into something concrete by my senior engineering manager, and then we can work on them. Which is a way of doing it, and it works. OKRs is a different way, and it works as well, right? It's not like
how does a sufficiently well-refined initiative look for you?
It's pretty much what an OKR would look like. We just don't call it an OKR. Anyway, it would have some sort of like it would touch some sort of process, and you would have a metric to define success, pretty much, if possible, as much as possible, right? And then we would have like syncs on those to see the progress. We'll have like a list of things to do, really, to make those better. And it usually involves talking to people, right? That's, you know, conversation. It's literally like, how do we change this process? How do we make it better? So one of the things I did to make it concrete so that people can relate a little bit, one of the things I did was I analyzed the agile process we were doing, because everyone does their own flavor of agile, right? We're all guilty of these. So the team was doing their own. Too many, yeah. Anyway, the team was doing their own. And when I joined, I said, I think this is way too many ceremonies. We need to review these. Let's talk to people. Let's talk to the tech leads, BAs, SAs, delivery. Like, what do we exactly think we need? Because this was inherited. Someone did this, right? So we can improve on it. And we did, and we made it become like less than half. It was crazy success. Those are the easy things to accomplish. There are way harder things.
Thank you for the answers. I see some questions there.
Awesome.
Please continue, add questions there. I just have to complete this part about initiatives, about from top down, bottom up. Can you say in brief, of course, with the reasonable amount of details that we can afford here in 2-3 minutes, how do you take decisions in terms of processing and tools? Like, is there any architecture decision log or company decision log? Is there something formal about it? How is there something like you measure the cycle time of implementing those decisions? What can you share with us?
Yeah, we have architecture decision logs.
Okay.
So literally, like, whenever some part of the architecture needs to be changed, there are logs about it, and we can review them and like refer to them in the future, which is good. Some of them are more comprehensive than others. I can see on the chat, like, IDR, like, we don't have an official name, or if we do, like, I don't remember it. I don't remember.
I'm taking Roy's, but maybe I'm translating.
That's fine. So then, like, we have. So I implemented the RFCs, request for comments, as in any developer wants to bring something up, like, creates an RFC and people can review, which is my own, like, air quotes, rebel way to implement a little bit of the open source mindset back into a very big corporation, right? So trying to, for them, innovate a little bit, right? And it's been not that successful, not gonna lie, but the foundation is there for people to build on over time.
Why do you think it was not successful? Maybe because we are here to learn, and it's not about perfectness or something like this. What do you think it would be useful for the audience to know? Yeah. This is why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, because RFCs work very well in open source world because no one gets paid to do that, not directly at least. And anyone can create an RFC and contribute to the project, right? It's open, right? In a team that gets paid a salary to work on a roadmap,
we shouldn't. That's what you say.
No, not at all. What I'm saying. What I mean is, you already have a roadmap, and you already have, like, your sprint planning. You have your time is pretty much sunk into what needs to happen to progress with the product or the company, right? So in that sense, like, or you integrate an RFC as part of that process of working, or if a solution architect creates a solution, the developer estimates it, or everyone estimates it together, three amigos, the work is very sequential, and there's not a lot of space for people to stop a little bit and think, like, this bit needs to be improved here, so I'm going to create an RFC and see what people think about it, and let's discuss. So in that way, it would be the engineering manager job to try to change that mindset a little bit. Hence why I tried to introduce RFCs in the first place. But like I was saying before, changing meetings or reducing meetings is hard, but I consider it being the easy bit of the job. The harder bit is changing mindset on a very big corporation. That's the hard job.
Okay, you've answered to my question with lots of details, and I hope it will be useful for the audience to have these answers. Let me take one question. If someone is preparing for an engineering manager role, what skills should they focus on to prepare for an interview apart from interpersonal skills and translator skills?
I usually say, like, when you have all these part of interpersonal skills and you do one-on-ones and you go on motivation and you go on productivity and all these topics, people can read a lot about these on the internet. But when you go on these topics, like it borderlines psychology, right? And we're not psychologists. Like, I'm not a psychologist, right? I'm an engineer. I did computer science. I coded for a long time. So it's kind of like you rely on those engineering skills that you accumulated over the years and the experience that you had working for various different corporations or startups or whatever it is, companies, right? And you take the sum of all of that, and then you go for an engineering manager job if you think you would like it. That's the bottom line of everything you should do in your life. Like, do you like it or not? And then, do you like it, right? Are you happy doing it? And then if you don't know, then you can try. And if you hate it, you go back, right? And there's no harm, no foul. The idea is like, it was clear to me going through software development career path that at some point you go into two different ways, or you continue on the individual contributor, you go like staff engineer, principal engineer, whatever it is, after being senior or something, or you go like tech leads, engineering manager, director, whatever it means, like management side, right? And you need certain skills that you can totally develop it, but ultimately you need to like them, right? For me, it was no-brainer that I would like to go on the management tree skill side, right?
Why? How can you tell? How can one tell?
Because so multiple reasons. I guess the biggest one was I've always liked to communicate with people, right? I've always been on a team of software development, and I was the one like talking to this person, that person. When it's time to present something to some manager, like people pick me. So it's kind of like naturally you're more inclined to this, right? But not at all I'm saying that you should have a born talent to be a manager. Not at all. You can train these, right? You can go on, you can do mentorship, you can do courses, you can read, you can experiment, you can go make a public speaking, go like you can there's loads of things you can do. Ultimately, to me, I resonated a lot with this thought of after being an engineer for 10 years, especially on the JavaScript space, that's what I do, like nodes and front end, whatever. After a while, or you change industries a lot, or after a while, the issues are similar, not the same, but similar. They have a lot of things in common. And you can apply solutions that kind of will make them work. And then you specialize on each industry, and maybe there's better things to do here and there. But the idea is like after 10 years, things evolve a lot. But this is a broad generalization. But anyway, I'll say it anyway. Ultimately, it's a puzzle that we want to fix every day, right? We have a puzzle, yeah. And tech is one level of puzzle, but to me, people is a different level of puzzle, right? And that people puzzle attracted me a lot. So hence why I tried to go experiment on the people side for a bit, see how it felt, right? And it felt really good. And we'll see if, who knows, I'll continue or not. I'll go back to coding more eventually or not. Like, it doesn't really matter. You can go back and forth. As long as, you're okay. As long as you're happy.
There's something very wise in what you say, in a sense, like there's science behind what you say, and you've came to this conclusion alone. I don't know if for the audience might be useful. There's something called the diffusion of innovation, and it's pretty well proven that when we talk with technology, if you do it without the social aspects of it, you're not gonna make it. And so, yeah.
I have a few principles in life. Like, one of those is like, you shouldn't do anything alone because it's not going to take you far, right? I might be wrong. I don't know. I'm not a philanthropist or anything. I just think those things, I guess.
Let's take another question from Jeremy, career development wise, do you use some kind of scales? Dreyfus is given as an example, like levels or other techniques to assess skills of your direct reports to know at which level they perform?
Yes, we do. Yeah, at Burberry we do. Yeah, we have what we call a career growth framework that people follow to understand what career path they want to be, and there's salary bands associated with each level, and there's prerequisites that you need to have or show to progress to the next level on the career ladder, right? And you assess those. You have performance reviews. You set objectives, and then people follow them or not.
Is this something specific to you, or you've started from something that existed in the world, like a tool? The Dreyfus was named here. It's one of the things that we use, for example. Thank Jeremy for is used in skills acquisition, but there are many techniques. Do you use something particular?
No, it was what Burberry had there. The senior engineering manager work on it. Like, it's there, people follow it, and I don't want to mention, because there's plenty on the internet people can find if you're interested in career growth frameworks, right? We don't use a particular one. And one comment I have to say, right? There's two ways you can go about this. Or you take one off the shelf, which is totally okay, or you take one off the shelf and you make it your own, right? That's what Burberry did, like made it their own, right? Based on someone else. Like, that's how evolution happens, right? You base off someone else's work and you put a little bit of yourself on it.
Good, and I definitely think we've covered fully the question with your answers, and I'm going to go to another one. So, do you do any coding right now? When started, did you have to code?
In my 3 engineering manager jobs so far, I didn't have to actively code. No, it wasn't expected of me to code. I do code because coding is what I do, right? It's like I'm an engineer, so I like coding. I do my own, personal projects, personal investigations. I do pair programming here and there with the people on the team. Not too much these days, unfortunately.
So
but anyway,
100% of the time, 90% is a translator. The 10%, is it in the 10% or in your personal?
Yeah, it's more on my personal. Yeah, 10% of the time would be, fighting fires, putting fires out, making sure that people are okay. Yeah.
Okay. So sorry, audience. So Burberry also has some fires from time to time.
Everyone does, right?
Okay. Before going into next questions, I will take one of mine. We still have 2 questions from the audience, and please continue. Very interesting. Thanks for that. Tell us something about governance, because governance in the modern world with lots of flexibility, speed, seems obsolete in many regards. Like, is that still a thing for you at Burberry? If that is, what is the form of it? What makes it valuable or not?
It is obsolete, and I have a bit of a thing against these, but anyway, you need to be reasonable and understand that to run a corporation like Burberry, pretty much worldwide, a lot of people, like, you have to have some sort of governance, right? So you cannot go full blown, like, become a rebel and borderline anarchist on things. Like, there needs to be some rules to govern, like, the company.
I think I've understood. So it's not obsolete.
I think it's obsolete, but unfortunately, I see the tiny value that it can bring to a worldwide corporation, right? And it needs to be like everything. It needs to be used in the right way. Unfortunately, it's really easy to be an overkill, which more often than not, it will happen, right? But if I give my own personal views not related to Burberry, yeah, we need to find better methods of organizing people. Or maybe different words, because also words have cognitive load into like governance, right? Bureaucracy, processes, rules, whatever, right? So we find a better word that can mean more or less the same thing, but a bit more flexible for people to be happier, more productive. Like, yeah, but there is governance. Yes.
You said happier again. Is that something measured at Burberry, or is that something?
We don't measure happiness. We measure a software development team performance, and there are plenty of ways to measure that. People can go on the internet. We follow some sort of DORA metrics, which has their own pitfalls, of course. And when I say, I'm very careful about what I say, because I usually don't like to follow a specific method. We need to take what the method is or the framework is telling us and make it our own to what the people are, right? Because if you're going to enforce something very strict to people that like, to be a bit more creative, they're going to be miserable, right? So you need to take it with a pinch of salt. And I guess that you're a good engineering manager, or in my terms, you're a good engineering manager or a bad engineering manager if you understand these difference of teams, right? You understand that in your team, you shouldn't apply DORA metrics to the letter, to the full extent of it. Otherwise, people will be miserable. And I say DORA metrics, I could say, input your buzzword here, right?
Yeah.
You just need to have this touch, right? And how do you teach this feeling, right? You need to have a mentor, you need to read, you need to experiment, you need to have experience, right? That's how you can train these bits. No one is born with this knowledge, right? You just train it over time.
That answers very well. I will take another question from the audience. What is your advice on how to manage the delivery pressure coming from upstream, execs, stakeholders, etc., and protect your teams for stressing out with undue deadline pressures?
Cool.
Because you said you measure performance.
Absolutely, yeah. Protecting the team is, I consider, another easy part of the job. It's really easy to go to a meeting, your developers are not there, so you choose what you communicate to them. You choose how you translate. Literally what you said in the beginning, right? You are the translator. So the way you translate, it's going to impact the team. And they really look up to you, because in the career ladder, they look up, they say, I will be an engineering manager one day. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them probably. And, they look up to you, and the way you choose to communicate these things, it's what matters, right? It's one part of the job. So that's what I consider the easy part. The hard part is for you to pinpoint where that pressure is coming from. Because, this is not a computer, this is not a system. It all boggles down to people, right? So the puzzle is there, there's pressure, where is it coming from? And as part of engineering manager job is to find where the issues are and to try to alleviate them, make them better, make them go away, like whatever you can do, right? So one of those things is for sure pressure, and then there are levels of difficulty on that. Like, it can be really easy to understand where the issue is coming from, in this case pressure, or it can be really hard. If it's really, really hard to find where an issue is coming from, more often than not might mean it's culture. Okay. And that's when things get really complicated, because you would be fighting something that it's really, really hard to change, right? In your team, you implement your culture, or what you think it's a good culture, and you might be mildly successful at it or not, right? That's the easy part. The harder part is when you have a corporation and you need to try to change something that it's, you know, it spans across a lot of departments, a lot of people, and that's culture. So if there's pressure, just because there's pressure, it means that it's part of the culture to be working there on that particular company, right? And when I say pressure, it can be anything. Like if people don't like to deploy on Fridays, it's because it's culture, right? Otherwise, you know, there's plenty of arguments not to deploy on. Please, people don't deploy on Friday. But anyway, that is just a way to try to explain you that, you know, when things happen, they happen because of people. Someone is making that happen, and maybe not one individual, maybe it can be a group of individuals, and then it's so large that it's literally culture. It's how it is.
What would you recommend to the audience for those who feel like the culture is reducing them more than valuing them and getting more out of it? What would you suggest for these people?
The hard word that gets wrongly used these days: you influence.
I write that down.
And I hate is too strong, but I don't like this word because these days it's being used in ways that don't really mean what I think influence means. It's literally like you create relationships, you fight for the good things, or what you believe it's the good work, you know, towards the objectives, right? And then you find like-minded people that, you know, would like to get on with you and do it as well. And the more and more people you get to think like these or to, you know, influence, then you might get culture changed. You might.
Is there anything that you've done in these regards that you kind of regret and you would recommend to people, the audience? Something that we should absolutely not do.
Absolutely not do. Don't go in too strong. When you identify the problem like this, don't go in too strong, because you'll only make it worse. Sorry, you're only going to make it worse. Because if you try to change it with a boom, with a bang, right, people will close down and make it harder to change in the future. So it's a very slow process of like, go to this person, go to that meeting. You know, some of this work happens in the pub, not gonna lie, but you know, it's slowly trying to change mindset and culture.
The harder you push, the harder the system pushes back, right?
Yeah. Like sand, right? If you squeeze it too hard, you cannot grab it.
Good. Back to one of my questions, DevSecOps. So you said something about QA. So there was a time where we put QA in teams, and we've distilled that into teams and say quality is the developers' overall job, so those who increment. And we've put that with, it was shift left, the other side. Shift left, testing and quality. Now we had ops, and we've shift lefted that. Security, we are shift lefting that. What can you tell about it? What's your opinion, and what's the future of that? How much of shift lefting can we reasonably expect from our small teams? Even if it's a larger team, every team cross-functional.
It makes becoming a developer more and more difficult the further we go, right? Because to be a junior engineer these days is a lot different than to be a junior engineer back when I started in 2012, something like that. It's so much harder these days. You know, kids are smarter. There's an easier way to get to information, and it's good. It's evolution, right? We don't want to stop it. We want to nurture it, and to nurture it means use it in a good way as well, right? So you know, these are always loaded questions because it depends a lot on the company. Like it depends on your needs. Like if you're constantly attacked, for example, you know, maybe you don't shift that left, right? Maybe you have an actual DevSecOps or security team, right? It really depends. I don't have a generic answer for this. I mean, I do have a generic answer. Be smart into looking into what your company needs, right? And if you think that a DevSecOps person will help you out to achieve your objectives, to bring more value to your users, more often than not, when you're attacked, you need to turn the system down, you need to throttle it, you need to stop it for a while, like whatever it is that it's happening, like it's going to be detrimental to your product or user experience. So that's what matters, right? It's at the end of the day, it's your product or user experience, or whatever it is that your success is measured at, that's what matters. And if a DevSecOps can be an answer to it, try it out, see how it goes. If you think that team is not providing a lot of value and it's just sitting there, like shift left, why not, right? It depends on a lot of things, your process, your product, depends. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a more specific answer, but I guess it's insightful enough.
This is what we do at CTO Talks. Genuine answers, that's what matters. There's no perfect answer, and that's what the audience gets. Not more, not less. And this is what we are looking for. And regarding what we are looking for, can you share with us your definition of technical debt first, and then if that's still a relevant metaphor or not?
Technical debt is relevant. There's multiple levels to why it's relevant or why it's not relevant. But anyway, you need to fulfill the objectives of your team. That's the primary goal of a team. A bunch of people that get together to a common goal. That's pretty much what a team is, right? And more often than not, to reach to these goals, to achieve these goals, then there are some corners that have to be cut, right? And that generates tech debt. Eventually, you will have to be paid, right? Eventually, and eventually is also a loaded word because it means it might never happen, right? But eventually you will. So it's kind of like there will be a feature in the future that you don't know about, no one heard about, it's not even in people's imagination yet, that will mean that to get implemented, you will have to pay certain tech debt that you left behind. And that realization, to me, it's what matters. Because when you realize that, then you have multiple approaches that you can take to it. You can have, in Burberry, for example, we have 10% of the sprint allocated, 10 to 20% of all sprints allocated to technical debt. I've worked in other companies that, pay technical debt as of when they have to pay it. So in order to implement the feature that we want to implement now, we have to fix X, Y, and Z before, right? And that's fine, I guess. And this is a realization of eventually you pay tech debt. This is a realization that, to me, also defines the difference of being a junior dev or a senior dev or a tech lead or an engineering manager. Because usually, I remember being a junior dev and technical debt didn't make any sense to me at all. And then with experience, you get to a point of hang on a second, we actually need to achieve our objectives, right? So it has to be, and it's a hard realization. And with time, you try, you start reading about strategies to deal with that, and, people go read on the internet and they'll find the strategy that they want to apply on their company. But as I said, in Burberry, it's 10 to 20% of the sprint. So that's one technique, I guess.
And what do you account as technical debt? Is it more like the code-related stuff in the software architecture? Like the design is no longer what we needed or the intended one and we need to evolve it? Or is it more related to other things that are intrinsic to the software, like vulnerabilities also that we found and we didn't solve, or we inherently developed in it and because we took a shortcut? or ops or infrastructure or data governance and documenting? What's in the body of the technical debt for you?
All of those, but
All of
to be
them.
specific, in Burberry, we made an exercise. So one of my initiatives was to organize the backlog, technical backlog, not the feature roadmap, right, but the technical backlog. And what we've done is we cataloged it into 4 different sections. Again, this is just a technique. I don't want people to follow this. I'm just saying what we did, and it kind of works. It can be done much better, probably. We divided into customer-facing production issues take precedence over any other type of tech debt. So customer-facing production. Then we have non-customer-facing and production.
Okay.
Right. Then we have non-production, I would say, like something related to environments or testing environments or whatever that is,
Okay.
that can somehow impact development experience. And then you have all others, right? Things that probably eventually will be done.
Eventually.
Eventually. The keyword, yeah.
So we still have 10 minutes, so we will make the most out of it. We'll take 2 questions from the audience, and then I have another 2, but one is mandatory. So let's do 2 minutes for each question.
Stop me if I'm taking too long.
No, this is perfect. Conversation, and I hope people will learn from it. So was it easy to be an engineering manager from a JavaScript and front-end expertise to a backend team? What are the new skills that you had to learn?
If you work in software development for a long time, software teams are software teams. It doesn't matter if they're front-end or back-end. You need to have some sort of technical knowledge, right? So if you don't know anything about a microservice, probably you shouldn't be leading a back-end engineering team. But, JavaScript evolved to become like a back-end technology anyway, right? With nodes and others. So I've had multiple full stack roles. As long as you know JavaScript and you know software teams, like it doesn't matter the background you come from, right? I would argue that you might not even need to know JavaScript. I managed the team where I had 2 mobile devs. One of them was Swift, the other one was Java. Back then, Kotlin was not a thing, but I did a bit of Java in uni a long time ago. I never touched a single line of code of Swift. And, I was pair programming with them, as in, like, how is it the syntax? Like, I don't know, but, do a for loop here and do the thing happen, right? A lot of things are interchangeable as long as you are prone to tech and work on software development teams for long enough.
I think it gets back to the fact that people are surprised to see what technology leaders really do, like the translator role, and the fact that they're not coding that much.
But here's a question for you: if you think that, how could you translate if you don't have the technical knowledge in the first place? Because then what are you translating, right?
Yeah.
You don't know. If you don't know the language, you can translate it.
It might be too simplistic or impossible. So
yeah,
I hope it answered. Now let's go to the next question, which is, what would be your biggest fear as an engineering manager at Burberry? You don't have fears, right?
No, no. What fear? Fear that I cannot, like, my developers become angry at each other and things just derail. Probably my biggest fear. I don't know. I don't think too much about that, because if you show up, like, you know what they say: if you show up, it's 80% of the job, right?
In fact, you had to say happiness, developer happiness here. You didn't want to. You had to.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, I guess I didn't answer one particular bit of the previous question, which was if it was easy to me to become an engineering manager. It's not easy. It's a lot of hard work. It might come more natural to you, to some people than others. And I hope it became a bit more natural to me, but still it's, you know, constant hard work. If you chose the tech world as your profession, you know it's not easy, right? It's not as hard as a surgeon probably, or at least, you know, if your server goes down, it's a relatively okay thing, as in if you put things into comparison, right? But still, you need to be constantly learning. You know, it's not a 9-to-5 job, right? You need to constantly be investigating, reading, and if you and it's true to anything that you want to do. Like if you want to be a staff engineer, then you need to be probably one of the best of your role, right? One of the best of your tech stack, whatever it is. Like if you want that level, right? If you want to become an engineering manager, you might start reading leadership books, right? Or whatever it is. It takes a lot of hard work.
I see another one briefly, because you've answered it, I think 2 times, but maybe not specific, not what do you love most about your job? If you can say it in brief.
Being involved in the software development team, it's what wakes me up in the morning. As in, you know, I also have my own, you know, my own personal projects and companies and, you know, personal goals, but still, like, I love being an engineer, and I'm lucky enough that being an engineer means that you can share that experience with others in a team. And those experiences, those things that you go through every day, they're what matter, right? And the goals, achieving the goals is pretty important, right? Because then you're successful to someone else's eyes or your own eyes, depending if you set your own objectives or not. But yeah, you know, happiness, it's relative as well, right? You can create your own happiness in a way. But anyway, it gets psychological, so still.
Thanks a lot for that. We still have 4 minutes. Audience, dear audience, please, there is a survey there. It can help us improve. Yeah, please do that. And there are some links with other resources. And now I'm going to ask my final question, the easiest one. So usually at the end of a session like this, I try to extract from you the best advice, the one thing that if there would be one thing you'd like the audience to get with, what would that be? And I'm going to give an example. When I was discussing with the first person that was invited to a CTO talk, and I said, I've asked the same question, and he said, we should not forget that it's a privilege what we do, and we have the privilege of changing and having an impact. And that was, in a sense, something that people took it as a, and especially me, and I'm learning from everyone also. So what's the thing you want the audience to get with?
If you choose, this is just coming up to my head. So if you choose this life, this tech, like engineer, computer science life, be ready to know that it's a lifestyle. You know, it's part of who you are. So it's going to influence everything else in your life.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
That, audience? Thank you. Very powerful. So thanks for being here and sharing this with you, your experience, and hopefully we'll meet again to another series, maybe in 1 year, to see how things evolve. And yeah, dear audience, see you next time. Thank you, Rui.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.